Welcome to On Our Watch, a podcast about coastal erosion and sustainability in Louisiana. My name is Marian Evans. I'm a filmmaker and a producer of the documentary On Our Watch, a feature-length film that examines Louisiana's coastal land loss crisis and the ways in which it impacts our communities, industries, and culture. The film's director, Jonathan Evans, and I are proud to produce this podcast series that will continue to explore issues facing the Louisiana coast through conversations with local residents, community leaders, and experts. In this episode, we're speaking with Sal Sunseri. Sal is the owner and director of P&J Oysters, a New Orleans-based oyster company that has been processing and distributing oysters since 1876. And now, our interview with Sal Sunseri. Thank you so much, Sal, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Indeed. This is a wonderful opportunity. I love being here.
Well, great. So for starters, I was wondering if you could give us some background on how you got into the oyster business. I know that the Sunseri family has been doing this for quite some time.
Yes, we have. And we've been at it for 148 years. We're now in 2024, so we don't know the exact date. I don't know when they put the first tongs in the water and, started harvesting oysters. But that's what it was. And back in 1876, the Puppeters and Jurisiches got together, and they were in the same community on the east side of the river in East Point Lahash, and just started doing oysters. And they took that knowledge from Austria and Sicily and Ustica. So they just started doing oysters and actually feeding the family first, and then starting to sell them throughout the community. And over time, they, went to the big city and started doing it there. So yeah, it's been around for some time.
Yeah, and so were you always planning to get into the family business, or how did that come about?
Yeah, no, I was not. I was thinking I was going to be doing something else. I was thinking about doing something like this. I was in mass communications. I was going to do something different and do TV, and radio and everything there is to do with, production of this. And so went to USL. Back in the day, it was called USL, the Raging Cajun County parish. And, that's where I fell in love with that part of it. And things changed. And just like when my grandfather needed my dad needed my brother, and my brother needed me. So that's kind of how it fell into place to where I ended up going back to P&J from Lafayette and helping out and making it work.
Yeah. And so can you give us some insight onto how P&J gets their oysters on a daily basis? Because, down here, a lot of people love oysters, but they maybe don't know the full picture of where they come from and what it takes to get them.
Sure. Well, we used to have docks down in East Point Lash. We used to have boats. We used to have all kinds of leases, some of the best producing leases in the state, but also in the world. And so, we were able to do from point to end, from farm to table, from waters to restaurants. And what we've done is evolve over time because we had two different parts of the family. Well, three different parts. And the Puppeters handled the boats, and the Jurisiches handled the docks, and we moved over into New Orleans, and it was a combination. And the Sunseris ended up doing all the sales, the production, the distribution. So over time, what happened is basically we bought them out, and we did not get into the oystering part of it. So we had relations with farmers throughout our lives too. And of course, the same relations that the Puppeters and Jurisiches had, that we were able to draw the same wonderful product, and we would process and distribute throughout the city. So that's kind of how we started taking over and evolving and pivoting,
Right. And so where do your oysters come from now?
Sure. It's still Louisiana, still all over, different areas. There's typically from area 13, from 3 to 19. So all those areas are producing Louisiana oysters, and that's what those are. They're numbers that dictate which specific area of the state are, producing those oysters. And so anywhere from a lot from area 3, which is kind of Caraca Bay-ish area, and a couple of the wonderful growing areas, and also 10, 11, which is on the west side of the river. And then we actually draw a bunch from area 14, 15, 16, not 16, 17, and a little bit from 19. So all that's on the west side of the river. And they're all just wonderful right now. The drought actually assisted us this year in the growth of oysters and the flavor. So it's really a beautiful product, and that's kind of where we draw from all over.
Okay.
We even drew some from Alabama for the holidays, and those are just beautiful at a certain time of the year, and they were great. People loved them. So, but yeah, most 99% is definitely from Louisiana and different sides of the river.
Very nice. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I never would have thought a drought would be helpful
Yes,
for
for
oysters.
the growth, yes.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing the oyster industry in Louisiana right now?
Biggest challenges facing the oyster industry. Perception right now. Pricing is a big thing because of restaurants have had to scale down just through all the different challenges we've all had and restaurants have had. And so one of the items they're going to pull off the menu is oysters, all right? And we need to get it back to where there's a demand and a desire, and people enamored again with oysters, and get the chefs just back into it. And I mean, of course, there's so many wonderful chefs and wonderful restaurants that produce great dishes, but it's almost like you want them to have that ability to have a lower price and say, okay, we can put 2 other dishes on this menu now because these are so great, and it's cost effective, and we'll be able to draw people in. So that's, I think, one big thing that's going on right now. Of course, the other big thing is freshwater diversion that's about to have a big play on the west side of the river, and it's out of Myrtle Grove. And it's going to be big. I mean, it's going to devastate a lot of fisheries, and we're going to have a tough time with that. And I've said it, my brother said it, the Gulf Oyster Industry Council, all these entities have said it for years. And after BP, I went up and spoke in front of a Senate committee and told them how important the oysters are to the ecology of our all these fisheries. And it was said way back, and it was always spouted, that oysters are a critical part of our ecology. So when you put these freshwater diversions out there, you're going to devastate the oyster. When there's too much fresh, you're going to kill them. So that's not good. And when you lose the oyster, you're going to lose other fisheries. So yeah, that's not good. It's a bad thing.
So
They need to go back to the way the Romans used to do it, and you build out a little bit of land at a time. You have smaller freshwater diversions, and you move the silt. And sort of like Wax Lake is a perfect example of something that can work. That's a natural environment to where the fresh water goes through all that marsh and silt, and it builds out. So but you don't have that throughout the coast. But we needed to, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago when we always talked about it as the coast changed. And but we're past that point. It's going to happen. There's going to be these huge freshwater diversions that are going to change the whole dynamic of Louisiana oyster.
Yeah. So if the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion happens, what do you think that means for the oyster industry here? Will it still exist in a form?
There's always things that we've done to pivot and move and get some federal funding for that, for the farmers to move and use the limestone and build reef. But the further and further you go, there's not as much production that's going to occur. So you're going to lose out that amazing, vast production of oysters in all these beautiful bays and bayous, and it's going to change.
Yeah.
So, but we'll have them. We're going to find them. We actually already, are in areas that are going to continue to produce. So P&J will always rock and always make sure that, our chefs and restaurants are going to have great product.
Absolutely. P&J will find a way.
Yes, we know how to pivot.
So what would you like to see for the future of the oyster industry here? Like, what's your best case scenario?
Well, we've tried to do some off-bottom cage-grown oysters, and it's a good thing. It's a great product. It costs a whole lot more to produce. Louisiana, unlike Alabama does a great job, and they have more of a succinct growing areas and protected areas. And they're able to, they have like 30 different named oysters that are doing very well. Ours are affected by storms a whole lot more. So investing in that product, it's great and it's a great product, but you are susceptible to damage from storms, and it's hard to recoup that investment. So there will be some of that to continue. And again, we're going to be drawing from different areas of the state. So there's got to be ways that we continue to produce in different areas.
Yeah, be flexible, be adaptable.
But I don't see it as productive as it has been. East side of the river should be able to compensate some as long as those state reefs continue to grow. We'll find out after this last set with the salt water that did help with the growth of all that this year. They had too much mussel on them and other oysters spat that were all over the shells. So that's a lot of the issue about not being able to harvest them or move them, because there's too much in wildlife and fisheries wants to keep them growing. So they don't want them to be harvested or managed, messed with. So they want them to sit and grow.
Yeah. So are there any important lessons that you've learned in your career so far that you'd like to share?
Important lessons. Lessons to be had in the oyster industry. Well, that's a first. Always remember that the customer is right no matter if he's not, or her. That's a big one for any industry. But no, I guess, it's in my blood. I love what I do. I think that it's hard for the younger generation to get involved in this hard industry, because it is, it's a tough industry. What I've learned is that to persevere and to pivot and to go through all these challenges, to recognize that you are providing such a wonderful product and people just love oysters. So learning from that, pleasing so many palates throughout the city, throughout the country, I think I love that, and I will continue to learn, different ways to cook them, different ways to produce, different ways to make sure people are happy with oysters.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Sal.
Indeed. Love being here. Always love to spread the word about oysters.
Thank you for listening to On Our Watch. We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Sal Sunseri. Don't forget to subscribe to On Our Watch on your favorite podcast app to be notified about future episodes. You can also watch a video version of this podcast on YouTube, which you can find a link to in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with another episode next week. This podcast is made possible through grant funds from the Greater New Orleans Foundation and executive produced by Bruno UK Steiner.